Fantasy freaks and geeks, what's going on? James Coe here with you. 15 to 20 minutes is all I need to walk you through this wacky world of fantasy football. All right, you know what time it is. It is Tuesday, which means we got to go through this waiver wire, man. And it's a very interesting waiver wire period as well. Let me get this out of the way. If you don't have Tyler Goodson, Isaac Guerrero, Jalen Wright, just again, these guys are going to be more, widely rostered, which means I'm not going to really spend a ton of time talking about these dudes. And I've talked about these guys on the waiver wire report before, but if they're on your waiver wire, these guys are worth ads. Okay. Now that being said, these are the other guys that I think should be more readily available on your waiver wire. And if you are in a deeper or more competitive league, I think these tips could help you a little bit more. All right. Second caveat. All right. If you want the full fab recommendations in terms of free agent budget, right? Or if you just want to support me, okay, go to the website, sleeperkingfootball.com. All right, we got them caveats out the way. Let's talk about who I really like. I'm going to go in order of the players that I like. And if I was just doing a traditional waiver wire run, who would I put at number one? Well, that would be Jauan Jennings. And this one is obvious, right? Brandon Ayuk is out for the season with an ACL. Debo has been hospitalized for pneumonia. Obviously, it is a wide open target share there in San Francisco. It was not a good outing against Kansas City, but make no mistake, the Chiefs have a great defense. Okay. And plus we have obviously seen Jauan Jennings do this before. I mean, he posted he had the best week of the season. If we're being real here, right? 12 targets, 11 grabs, 175 yards, and 3 touchdowns for 45 PPR points. I think that was back in week number 3. Deep sleeper on this same team, Jacob Keon. Again, if Debo ends up missing a little bit of time because of, he's been freaking hospitalized, for God's sakes. I know he's Superman, but the guy's been hospitalized with pneumonia. To expect him to come back and play at a high level seems like a stretch to me. Okay, but 2 names that are deeper sleepers that I think you need to keep on your radar. Obviously, Ricky Pearsall is a first-round draft pick. As a deep sleeper, I think he's worth an ad. But don't forget about Jacob Keon as well. Right, he's a rookie too. He plays primarily, almost exclusively out of the slot. And if Debo ends up missing a little bit of time and they start playing some more 3 wide receiver sets, it's going to be Jauan Jennings. It's going to be Ricky Pearsall on the outside, and on the inside, Jauan Jennings can play on the inside as well, but Jacob Keon, rookie out of Arizona, could play in that slot role too. And I think he's actually a pretty good player. I do. I think he's a pretty good player. If you want to go check out some of his, game highlights, I think you might be impressed by his ability, especially his after the catch ability, playing as a slot man. All right, so there you go. All right, we move on. Let's talk about Keon Coleman, 32% rostered as of recording, and obviously that percentage is going to go way up here after a fine performance, a spectacular performance that he had here in week number 7. 7 targets, 4 grabs for 125, and is he a developing rookie? Yeah, he is. He's 21 freaking years old. Okay. This guy is, not only is he developing as a player, my guy's still developing into his body. I mean, think about that. Think about what you were like at 21. He's 21 years old. The offense, it's going to be a lot more high flying with Amari Cooper. I mean, shoot, 1 game in, Amari Cooper barely played. I mean, he played like 50% of the snaps, and the offense looked way better. So, yeah, they're going to score a lot more points. They're going to be put into more touchdown situations, which, again, more touchdown exposure for all of the players, including, of course, Keon Coleman, right? And the addition of Amari also allows Coleman to see lesser coverage and for Coleman to play a lot more flanker instead of all these X receiver reps that he is currently seeing. Getting him off of the line and to be able to move that big body before he gets into press coverage, I think that could be huge, right? But just getting him off the line, I think, is going to be big for him. Keon Coleman is, again, a developing player, not just from a skill set standpoint, but also a body type standpoint. So, yeah, man, let this guy develop off the line so he's not getting mugged in man-to-man coverage. You know what I mean? So I like that part of it too in terms of the addition of Amari Cooper. Again, This dude is 21 years old. We're going into week number 8. This is typically the time that we have seen high-end rookie wide receivers really start to develop and take off. Could Coleman be the next young prospect to do this? We're going to find out. Now, again, I want to emphasize, this is the time when high-end rookies start to take off. Is Keon Coleman a high-end rookie? Well, he was drafted pretty high. I don't necessarily know if he's a high-end prospect. We're going to find out, though. He's a very interesting player. He's got so far to go from a skills standpoint and a technique standpoint. But, man, when you get this guy moving, his ability after the catch is something special. He's also got really good hands in contested catch situations. So I'm intrigued. I am very intrigued by Keon Coleman. He could go one of two ways, man. He could be a huge bust, or honestly, he could develop into a really, really good downfield player as well. We're gonna see. We're gonna see. Let's talk about Cedric Tillman there in Cleveland. He had a really strong outing here: 12 targets, 8 grabs for 81 yards. And when Amari Cooper did get traded away, a lot of folks thought it was going to be Jerry Jeudy time, but the team kept Jerry Jeudy in his normal slot flanker role. And it was actually 2023 third-round pick Cedric Tillman who actually filled in that Amari role as an outside X player, right? Outside X and flanker. He's just an outside, wide receiver. And remember, his last year at Tennessee, he played almost exclusively as an outside X. So this dude's got the experience and he's got the chops, right? I thought he looked really good in that role Sunday. Again, 12 targets, 8 grabs, 81 yards. In PPR, 16.1 from Cedric Tillman, 0% rostered. Come on, bro. Take that all day long. And not to mention, Jameis Winston, potentially the starting quarterback here for the Cleveland Browns. When you pair Jameis Winston, his wild style, with what Cedric Tillman can possibly do downfield as an outside X receiver, sign me up. Sign me up. I like this kid's upside, and I like it a lot. All right, speaking of Jameis Winston, I mean, come on now. We've been down this road before now. All right. We know what Jameis Winston can do from a fantasy perspective, because in fantasy, the turnovers don't hurt you as bad. Right? Third string quarterback, you say? It's Jameis. It's all good. You know what? Don't matter. Jameis Winston comes in and he immediately throws a touchdown. That's incredible. It's the full Jameis. We're getting the full Jameis here. And we really need to see this guy start. Honestly, forget it. The season's over, guys, in Cleveland. You know what I mean? Like, who cares? Let's go in there and see what you got in terms of certain players, have some fun out here, and basically just, let the fans have some fun too. Put some enjoyable football on tape, man. Let's do that. How about that? And by the way, hey, listen, let's not make it seem like Kevin Stefanski hasn't done this before. Let's not make it seem like Kevin Stefanski has not taken a statuesque veteran pocket passer and turn them into a fantasy relevant asset, right? Not only did he do this with Joe Flacco last year, it was Jacoby Brissett the year prior. So in back-to-back years, Kevin Stefanski has been able to take a statuesque pocket passer and make them fantasy relevant, right? Plus, listen, I don't love the pass catching group, but let's not sit here and pretend it's the worst in the league. Let's not sit here and pretend just because Deshaun Watson single-handedly destroyed this offense that they don't have some pieces. They got some pieces now, right? Again, I'm intrigued by Cedric Tillman. We talked about him. Elijah Moore can play. I don't care what nobody tells. Elijah Moore can play. All right. I think he has the talent level to be a solid number 2. A solid number 2. Not a high-end 2, right? Like, I'm not going to compare him to like T. Higgins or something crazy. No. I'm saying a solid number 2, right? So somewhere in that wide receiver 50 to 60 range when we're talking about real-life rankings. I think he's got the talent level certainly to be that guy, right? Jerry Jeudy, okay, let's move on. I'm not a fan of Jerry Jeudy. Can this guy play? He's got shaky hands. His route running's not great. After the catch, he's got some ability here, but not good in contested catch. Even on open throws, he's not very. His hands, bro, It's tough. But hey, listen, Jerry Jeudy as a number 3 though, right? Where you're not relying on the guy, that's all right. You can take that. So, but anyways, Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman as your top 3 wide receivers. I don't think that's bad. Plus David Njoku. Listen, he's a terrific pass catching option at tight end. And oh, by the way, they got Nick Chubb getting healthier. I'm telling you, this is not the worst offensive unit in the NFL. I'm not saying they're good. But also, I'm being very cognizant of the fact that Deshaun Watson single-handedly destroyed the offense. They've got some pieces. All right, at tight end. Well, speaking of 21-year-olds, how about this kid Jatavion Sanders there in Carolina? Again, another 21-year-old tight end. And by the way, for a tight end to be 21 and be this productive in back-to-back weeks, that is incredibly impressive. Look, it was an absolute bloodbath in Carolina, or for Carolina rather, but the rookie tight end, I thought he looked impressive again in back-to-back weeks now. Okay? In a 2-week stretch, he's put together some really, really good tape. 11 receptions on 13 targets for 110 yards over his last 2 games. Again, 11 for 13. That is really impressive. And this kid can move, man. He is athletic. I really like what I saw from Jatavion Sanders. And it's just because tight end is an absolute hellscape. I mean, you've got to find some of these guys. You've got to look at some of these dudes. Jatavion Sanders is worth a roster spot in 12-team or deeper leagues. I don't know how long Tommy Tremble is out with his concussion, and the concussion he suffered was one of the more scary-looking concussions that you will find in the NFL. I mean, out cold. Out cold. And so, again, I don't know when he's going to be back, right? That being said, I think I've seen enough from Jatavion Sanders to say, even when Tommy Tremble is healthy and ready to come back, Sanders deserves more run, and he deserves, I won't go so far as to say he deserves to be the starter, but shoot, if they're looking for some kind of offensive spark, I think Jatavion Sanders is a much better option than Tommy Tremble. Now, that being the case, I wouldn't go crazy adding Sanders because, again, maybe Tremble comes back. I'm not a run blocking guy. I'm not out here trying to figure out run blocking grades, okay? But maybe Tommy Tremble gives them a little bit more juice in the run blocking, and we know Dave Canales wants to run the ball, right? So where are we at with Jatavion Sanders as a run blocker? I'm not sure. That's not what I do. Okay. But there is the possibility, though, that Tommy Tremble is playing a lot or was playing a lot because he's good in the run blocking game. Anyways, let's talk about D'Ernest Johnson there in Jacksonville. Just 9 carries for 38 yards, but he did run 11 routes, and on those 11 routes was targeted 4 times, which is actually a very high percentage of targets per route run, right? Three receptions there for 32 yards and an even 10 PPR points from D'Ernest Johnson. Now, Bigsby went crazy, right? 118 yards on the ground, 4.5 yards per carry. But I keep going back to D'Ernest Johnson because Bigsby in all of these games has 2 targets. He's got 1 reception on the year, folks. 1. Look, in week number 7, D'Ernest Johnson had 11 routes versus 7 routes for Tank Bigsby, and Bigsby played a lot more snaps, right? And I bring this up because why? They're obviously not trusting Tank Bigsby as a pass-catching running back. Okay, well, what does that mean? That means he is very game script dependent. Well, what does that mean? If Jacksonville is getting boat raced or if they're losing by double digits, Bigsby's in trouble. By the way, Travis Etienne might be coming back. But D'Ernest Johnson as a deep league stash, I think is pretty smart. Let me tell you why. The upcoming schedule here for for Jacksonville is brutal. Green Bay, Philadelphia, Minnesota, Detroit, bye. Then they've got Houston, Tennessee. Tennessee's got a great defense. Hopefully they figure out something on the offensive side of the football. And then they've got the Jets as well, another great defense. I just laid out for the next, I don't know, 7 to 8 weeks. That's a horrendous stretch of games for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And in most of those games, as a matter of fact, in all of those games, all the way up until Houston, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. Over the next 6 games, they will be heavy dogs, I promise you. Jacksonville will be heavy dogs against all of these teams, right? So what does that mean? Game script-wise, man, even if Tank Bigsby gets in there, how much are they going to utilize him? I don't think very much at all. If Travis Etienne ends up re-injuring himself, I like Dearness Johnson a lot more because of potential game script over the next 7 weeks. So just a name to keep in mind. He is a deep sleeper for sure. I'm not spending any kind of budget to go get Dearness Johnson. I just said you can go to the website, sleeperkingfootball.com, for my fab recommendation. I'll give this one to you for free. Spend $0. Okay. I'm going to spend a $0 or $1 bid to go get Dearness Johnson. I'm certainly not going to be burning a waiver wire priority, right? If I've got like the number 3 priority, I'm not wasting that on Dearness Johnson, if that makes any sense. All right, last one. And honestly, this one, I probably should have moved Sterling Shepard up, but it's because I just finished watching Monday Night Football and I didn't move him up. But I would probably have him right outside of Cedric Tillman. So it was Jauan Jennings, Keon Coleman, Cedric Tillman, and then I would go Sterling Shepard, and then I would go Jameis Winston. But let's talk about Sterling Shepard here. Chris Godwin, obviously likely done for the season, dislocated ankle. Mike Evans re-injured his hamstring. It looks like he is going to be out for multiple weeks, right? Don't know that for sure, but I'd be surprised just if he played in the next 2 weeks, let's say. So this room right now, this wide receiver room is wide open. They need pass catchers, and they will certainly lean on the rookie in Jalen McMillan, but I am more interested and more intrigued in Sterling Shepard. He's had a bit of a career resurgence here. He's got to stay healthy. That's the number one thing. But if he can stay healthy, he's been playing 65-35 outside, inside. So mostly an outside player, but I think he fills that Chris Godwin role a lot better than anyone else on this roster. Right? He has been more consistent and more leaned upon than Jalen McMillan. So Sterling Shepard to me is a really interesting add. He's a KG veteran. And by the way, not for nothing, he does have some built-in chemistry playing with Baker Mayfield, his former collegiate quarterback at Oklahoma. And by the way, another little bit of glimmer of hope here for Sterling Shepard. At one point, Shep was a reception perception darling, okay? In 2019, he posted a 75.7% success rate versus man coverage. At the time, that was an 88th percentile score versus man coverage. This dude can get open. Oh, by the way, posted a 94th percentile score versus press coverage. Come on, get out of here. Sterling Shepard can separate. Sterling Shepard can get open. Now, obviously, age and injuries have sapped a lot of that juice. I'm not saying it hasn't. Again, this was from 2019. We are in the year of our Lord, 2024. That is an entire lifetime. Multiple careers have gone in 5 years. You know what I'm saying? So shoot, I get it. A lot has changed. But at the time, this guy was an absolute excellent high-level separator against man and press coverage. You don't just lose those skills, my guy. Yeah, sure, 100%. Like, he is definitely, aged, and injuries have sapped a lot of that. But from just a technique standpoint, I think he still has it, right? And I think that is why he's got himself onto the football field. So I'm more interested in Sterling Shepard. Hopefully Liam Cohen finds a way to get this guy the football. But yeah, I do think Sterling Shepard is worth an add, and he absolutely needs to be rostered in 12-team or deeper formats or just any competitive league. I think Sterling Shepard has an opportunity here, especially with Chris Godwin now going on the shelf for the season. Sterling Shepard really has an opportunity in front of him to be a very fantasy-relevant player. Speaking of Baker Mayfield, he is coming into this week was the quarterback 2 in standard leagues, the quarterback 1 in 6-point passing leagues. You got to move him. I mean, move him for anything. I mean, literally anything. I don't know what you can get for Baker Mayfield, but if you can get, a flex piece, if you can get a high-end RB handcuff, I'm doing that. No Chris Godwin, no Mike Evans for a couple or few or maybe longer weeks. It's not going to be great. It is not going to be great. Anyways, there you go. That's the show. If you guys would do me a solid, obviously go check out the website, sleeperkingfootball.com. If you would subscribe, if you have not subscribed to the podcast, that would be great. And again, if you've stuck with me for this long, man, if you guys would rate the podcast too, man, that would help me tremendously, and I would love you forever. Anyways, I got to go. Remember, it's never too late to chase your dreams. We'll see you tomorrow.